What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hopsgeeknews, a podcast that talks about comic books, movies, TV shows, and we typically feature a beer of the week. I am Matt. With me, as always, is Lauren, and today's season finale of Star Wars Month 2024, where we will be talking about the High Republic, giving you some backstory, discussing a little bit, getting you ready for the Acolyte, getting ready to premiere this week on Disney Plus. Cannot wait. It is like my most anticipated show, as June actually kicks off a really great month for television between The Boys, Acolyte, The Bear, a lot of good stuff coming to TV. So first things first, make sure you follow us on social media, Hopsgeek News. Find us on every podcasting platform, same name. And then please drop a review, subscribe, all that good stuff. That's how the podcast grows. Support the show, and look forward to interacting with all you guys. We just wrapped up our first ever Patreon kind of watch along sauced ones, we like to call it, where we watched Madame Web, which we're going to probably talk about Madame Web here in a minute. Nothing too in depth, but we got to give our thoughts.
Maybe I do need a beer.
Yeah. So as always, first things first, we talk beer and whatnot, what we've messed up on or looked into, reading or watching, and the news. I don't have a beer this week. I'm drinking water because Lauren is actually coming to town this week, and I figure we're going to be doing plenty of drinking. And also, last night we did a drinking game to Madame Web, and I'm just gotta take a couple days break in between, But Lauren, do you have anything?
I'm not. No, I'm not
Drinking
in
from the
solidarity with
tree of
you.
life today.
Yes, I have water and a Mickey Tervis here.
Hey,
But
look at
we
us, our
are
Mickey cups.
oh, nice. We are double recording tonight, so I think I'm gonna have to
We
get a
are.
beer because we are recording next week's too, which will be The Boys, and I don't know if I can record The Boys recap without a beer.
Yeah, we'll probably have one for that one. But this week, though, no beer, just water. And if you catch something that we've messed up on or we need to look into a little bit further, by all means, call us out. You can do it via email, on our Facebook page, Twitter. It doesn't matter where, man. Just shoot us a message. I always love when people are like, "Hey, dummy, this is wrong," because again, like, we're not experts. We don't pretend to be experts. And
Nope.
so make sure you do that. But going into what we've been reading or watching, I have read this week for nerdinitiative.com Black Panther Blood Hunt #1. Now Blade has turned T'Challa into a vampire, and he's fighting back that thirst and trying to fight the Blood Coven. It's a 3-issue miniseries going along with the rest of the Blood Hunt series that Marvel has going out right now. I thought the artwork was really fantastic. It's a pretty cool, like, T'Challa's really struggling, not giving into those vampire tendencies. He almost does. But overall, like, he has to protect his people, which is really solid. So make sure you check that out. I did Batman Dark Age #3. I am loving this comic book because it's basically old man Bruce Wayne going senile, sitting in like a mental old people home, recounting his days as Batman. It takes us back to like the 70s era of Batman when he first started. So you get to see in this issue Superman, the Justice League, how Bruce is sitting there talking about how bored he is with these superheroes, even though he's the only one without legit powers. And he's talking about how bored he is, how he can just think about how crime's rising in Gotham. And it's basically like his first war against crime in Gotham that he's navigating through. Very good comic book, man. Cannot recommend that one enough. I did.
Makes me think of the meme with the old lady on the walker, and they're like, "Okay, Grandma, like when I first went to work for her,
Exactly.
it was $40. Okay, Grandma, let's get you to bed."
Yeah, no, that's exactly basically how it is. And it actually reintroduces kind of another introduction for a famous character, the sidekick of his, and kind of gives him another original origin story a little bit. So that was pretty interesting. And then the last thing that I read is Creature from the Black Lagoon. Lives, excuse me, #2. That's the monster, Universal Monsters, Skybound Entertainment, Image. They're all working on this. In this issue, it's kind of continuing from issue 1. They are going after Collier, who is like this murderer. They kind of stumble upon him, and the creature's kind of in the woods of the jungle, much like the Predator would be. So pretty solid artwork in that one, man. It was really, really cool how there was streaks of blood across the creature. It's green, and I thought it was really solid. I have not watched Doctor Who in the last couple of weeks. I got to get on that. And before we go into Madame Web, giving you our thoughts, because there was a couple people asking us, such as Jerry from our Facebook page says he needs our thoughts on it. What have you been reading, watching, all that good stuff?
So I am caught up on Doctor Who. This last episode was very creepy. Not Weeping Angels level creepy, but it was creepy. But my one complaint is we really didn't see the Doctor in this. So, and I love this
I've
Doctor.
heard that actually. Yeah.
And I want more of this doctor, and obviously we will get him. I do keep looking at the companion as a child because she is younger than my oldest child. So I feel like she's too young because you need somebody with more life experience. And then I think back to Rose, and I'm like, Rose probably was pretty young too
Yeah, she probably was. She just looked
at the
vastly different because
time.
this girl does look really young. I didn't realize she was that young. Wow. I
Yeah,
thought she was
so
like
my daughter
mid-20s.
actually told me, she's like, "Oh yeah, she was born in 2004 and my daughter was born in 2003."
I hate
So
everything.
it's yeah, I know. And then I look at that and I'm just like, I feel like once you're literally old enough to be somebody's parent, you view them in a different light, not necessarily negative. It's just like
Well, no, it's not even like a
always going to
creepy
look at
aspect.
my
It's just like, what the
child as
hell?
a child. Yeah, it's like I don't want my daughter running around in the TARDIS,
Some strange man, alien
Yeah,
being
no, that's
doing God knows
dangerous.
what.
And, like, in this specific episode, when you get to it, there are times where I'm like, "Why are they treating her like this? She is a literal child." Not literal child because she's above 18, but, like,
Well,
if somebody was
still.
treating my daughter like that at her age, like, I would be livid. But, okay, so we'll talk more about that. Well, maybe when Doctor Who's over. Well, and if you want more on what's going on, actually, Tom from Nerd Initiative is recapping that, and I know we're actually
He's
going to be
done
going
lives
on
every
one of
Monday
those
night.
episodes, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be talking a lot about that with Tom. I've started my Wolverine rewatches, so I'm on the Wolverine now. I
Oh
love these
God.
movies.
Oh
Anytime
brother.
I rewatched Origins recently, and like, yes, the Deadpool part. I mean, we'll go into more of that next month. That's why we're rewatching them. But I started the Wolverine, and I love it. I really liked the Wolverine. So my comic book this week was Wolverine number 50 by Ben Percy. This is the issue I've been reviewing every month. I have been reading this issue since 2020. I did not realize that this is the final issue for this series.
Oh, I didn't either.
So it's wraps up. I thought it was just wrapping up the Sabretooth War, but it wraps up the whole 50 issue run. And then there's a little like bonus story with Wolvie, Jubilee, and like a Sentinel. And then they go into a really cool like recap of like Wolverine's life and some art and just a little like nods to different things. And then Ben Percy wrote a little page about how much he loved this character, how he grew up loving this character, that he hopes he did the character justice. And it was difficult to do this character properly, but give his own spin. I think he nailed it. I think all of these issues, it was very obvious that he writes a fantastic Wolverine. When I got to meet him at MegaCon last year, I told him that his Wolvie and Deadpool are the Wolvie and Deadpool I want to see on screen. At no point throughout this entire series did I feel like, well, that's not what Wolverine would do, or that's not
Right.
Logan. Like I really felt that. And I also did read Deadpool and Wolverine, the new comic that just came out. It came out a couple weeks ago. I didn't love that. I didn't feel like that was 100% Wade and Wolvie, especially because Wolverine kept calling him Deadpool, and I feel like he usually calls him Wade. Maybe I just haven't
Yeah.
read enough Deadpool Wolverine comics. But I will keep reading that just because I'm hoping it like, evolves and there's more going on to it. But
That makes
that's what
sense.
I've been reading or watching this week. And Madame Web.
Well, let's discuss the elephant in the room that our elephant. No, they're afraid of mice. But let's pretend they're afraid of spiders, much like we are. Yeah,
I'm
we
not afraid
watched
of
Madam.
spiders.
Look,
Oh, now I okay, yeah.
oh God, I watched this movie not once but twice, back to back nights. Like once, the first time was one night, and then just so I can prepare the game for our Patreon event, and then I watched it through. It was painful. God damn, this movie sucks so bad. Like the villain had his whole thing is like, I saw myself getting murdered in my dream. Let me kill these three teenage girls that don't even have superpowers yet. And you only see them in the suits once. And then like his dialogue doesn't match half the time. Dakota Johnson could not be more bored with what she's doing. Sydney Sweeney is delivering a performance. She showed up on set. That's about all I can say about her effort in this movie as well. The girl who played Maddie, she did a good job for what she was given. Or they can't say
She was
anything
the
about
best part
Spider.
of the movie, I feel like.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, we did I wanted to look into that. Like, what the
They
hell
can't
was
say
that
anything about
about?
Spider-Man. And they have Emma Roberts as Peter Parker's mom, but they never call him Peter when he's in any of that. They have Ben Parker that they name, but they never name Aunt May. They just have this elusive, oh, it's serious. You're going out with a girl tonight, and oh my God, it just.
Well, and it's 2003. Are they really trying to make it like it's Tom Holland?
No, I thought the original was supposed to bleed into and make like a sequel for the Amazing Spider-Man, and then that
That timeline
fell
wouldn't make
apart, and
sense.
so I don't really know what's going on. It doesn't. If it's 2003, it sure as hell doesn't make sense. Like the original film, I'm pretty sure was rumored to be. They go. like the villain goes back in time to try to kill baby Peter Parker and they have to stop him. Like that right there. That's a solid storyline. Give me
War
that.
Machine write that script?
Yeah. Yeah. Like that would have been great. But at the end she gets blind somehow and breaks her
I
back. So she's in a wheelchair with really awful sunglasses delivering
thank
really
you.
awful lines. And this God, I give us what's on your mind about Madame Web.
So obviously we watched it in a way like you watched it first though. I watched it brand new with fresh eyes with everybody else when we did the Patreon episode. So obviously we're talking through it, which I wouldn't normally do, and we're making jokes and whatnot. The movie overall wasn't too terrible, but it didn't make complete sense as to what was going on. And let's say it was better than I had expected, because obviously I went into it with very low expectations. The end was so god awful terrible that even if the movie had been decent, the end would have just ruined it, because like
Oh
the
my
end is
God,
very
it was
important.
so bad.
That's what people are walking out like. Do you want them walking out on like a high, or do you want them walking out on like, what the hell? We watched Lost for how many years and this is what we're ending with? Like the ending is very, very, very important. And this ending was just cheesy. And it was like they were clearly setting it up for other stuff. But it was so god awful cheesy. It was cheesy. And it was, I know this is a superhero movie, so it's not going to be realistic, but this was so unrealistic. She's blind and she can't walk, but she's like never seen things more clearly. She wasn't depressed before. She was
No, I
not
mean, she was
showing,
delivering her lines like she was depressed. Oh my God, there was
but I
not
mean,
an
like,
ounce of emotion at any point of her in this movie.
but it seemed like she was just somebody who was awkward, but like she always seemed like she was, having a good time with Ben. It seemed like she had a good career that she liked. Like, sure, she was single, but that there's nothing wrong with that.
She
You can be
somehow
happy and
broke her
single.
back. Yeah, I don't really understand like that
So
the whole fall she took or whatever. They killed a villain, by the way, like dropping a sign on him. He's the worst villain. He's the most inept villain on planet Earth.
should have
First
Jeff
and
Foxworthy
foremost, this
show
guy
up
is
like, here's your
awful.
son.
But yeah, like she somehow breaks her back and goes blind, and they don't really like the fall she took. No, she fell into water. Like at no, I don't really understand how that happened, but they had to make her comic book accurate, I guess. So, and Madam Web is immobile and blind, I guess, and
But isn't
I'm
that
just
because she's really old? I don't know. I don't know much about
she
Madame
is
Web.
old. Yeah, Madam Web is old. In like the 97 or 94, 30, whatever it is, year cartoon of Spider Man. Uh, but yeah, like I
It's
don't
such a
know.
shame. I
It
feel like
was
there was
awful.
potential too, because I feel like there was potential to have a good story there and to create more of a Spider-Verse that you could weave in and out of the MCU. But like the MCU is not gonna be like, "Oh, that was a shitty movie." Yeah, let's weave it into the MCU.
No, they want to forget everybody. I mean,
It's like, I don't think we're gonna pretend that the last Fantastic Four movie happened. I mean, who knows? They did bring the, what's his face from Inhumans in. So
that's
I thought
true.
we were pretending that didn't happen. So, I mean, anything's possible, I guess.
There's
I
no
didn't even finish
redemption.
that.
There's
At
no
least I finished
redeeming.
Madam Web. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it was
Not the
like
best.
it doesn't even get a 1-star review out of 10 in my book. It's very bad.
The
Like
CGI was bad too. It was like,
these random weird flashback sequences again, like, oh my God.
but like it
It
had
was
like CGI from like 2000 Sam Raimi Spider-Man, but that was what he was dealing with. Like this was technology over 20 years ago. So like it made sense that it looked like a video game at
and
times.
she also like steals a taxi cab and rides in that taxi cab the whole movie and nobody says a word. She takes the license plates off even in New York City where there's cops everywhere and nobody bats an eye.
And there's a thing on top of the cab. She never takes that
Yeah,
off.
like it's just and she's I yeah, I don't get it. And the whole like she kidnapped the kids and then that plot disappeared. I don't know, man. It was bad. It was awful. Do
The best
just
part
don't
was when they played Toxic and they danced at the diner.
yeah, and that's not even saying much. So yeah, that was Madam Web. That was something. That was
It was
something.
something.
We have just a tiny bit of news. Lauren, what are the couple bits of news that you have now?
So live action Moana begins filming this fall, and Moana 2 comes out November 27th. So a lot of Moana going on this fall.
Disney.
Uh, Thrawn Alliance, the comic. So this is a comic I've talked about a couple times on the podcast. It's based on the book. I thought that they had abruptly ended the comic, didn't know what was going on. It is coming back this fall, so they will be finishing that story. The fourth and final season of Umbrella Academy will be coming out August 8th on Netflix.
Ooh,
Um,
finally.
if you want to do something fancy for the finale of Doctor Who, the 2-episode finale will be shown in cinemas on Friday, June 21st at 11 p.m. My
Interesting.
last bit of news is a little bit somewhat mysterious. So Giancarlo Esposito, also known as Moff Gideon, also known as Gustavo Fring, will be in the MCU, and he claims his character will be getting a series, but we don't know
Ooh.
who he is.
Yeah,
I
I
know there's
saw
been
he's
talk of him being Xavier. Who knows?
they're gonna like show him or something like that. I don't think he's gonna be Xavier or Magneto. I don't think he's gonna be any of those characters. Maybe he's Mr. Sinister or something. Who knows?
I mean, he plays a fantastic, great evil guy. I mean, even in
Yeah,
the boys, he's that evil that's just, oh my god, he's just so good in everything
he
yeah,
really
he's always
is.
evil.
He
But
really
even
is.
well, he wasn't evil in Once Upon a Time. Remember, he's the magic mirror.
I don't remember that movie. I do. Yeah, you're right. I do now. I do. I
He
do.
was
I
in
mean, he
love
works
with
for the bad
Regina.
guy, but whatever.
Well, he was in love with her.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's
Well,
what I want his origin story in, Breaking Bad, like, because they went
oh,
more
I
into
thought
his
the
origin. No, not in the not the
I was
the
like,
mirror.
one okay.
No, Once Upon a Time can go to bed. I don't need any more of that. But, like, in Better Call Saul, they went a little bit more into his origin story, and it made me wanna know even more about his origin.
Mm, yeah, I never. Yeah, I didn't finish Breaking Bad, obviously.
Only
But
person ever who didn't finish Breaking Bad.
no, there's dozens of us,
Are
maybe.
you guys like Never Nudes?
I couldn't get into it, man. I don't know. Now, something I could get into is Lego releasing a Zelda set. It will be $299. I didn't see the piece count. It's the minifigures look great on it. Zelda Lego just out here trying to take everybody's money at all times. It's a pretty sick set. I'm not gonna lie. Aside from that, Glenn Powell says he doesn't really have interest in being in any superhero films, but he did say he would like to play Batman. I can't really picture him as Batman, but I've typecast him as Hal Jordan in Green Lantern because he's his background in Top Gun and being a pilot and having that suave, like jokey kind of attitude. And he's really freaking muscular. Like something about his build also says Hal Jordan to me, not Batman. So
Jensen Ackles should be Batman.
honestly. And now, last but not least, 28 years later has finally begun filming. I love this franchise. 28 Days Later with Cillian Murphy. Sorry, that was a really great zombie kind of rage virus take on zombies. And then they did 28 Weeks Later with Jeremy Renner. That was a really good, kind of a generic zombie film. It was really interesting. They kind of curbed the zombie apocalypse, the rage virus, but the kid is immune to it. So it spreads again throughout Britain, and then the movie ends with them in Paris, and it seems to have spread now into Europe and things. And now we're getting it 28 years later. So I'm very interested to see this play out. Cannot wait. Also, Knives Out 3 is in production. There's a lot of cast members that are rumored to be in there, such as Tom Hardy, Lindsay Lohan. Like it's got a stacked cast. So always looking forward to that. I like the Knives Out franchise. So I'm pretty
Yeah,
pumped.
it's pretty good.
But that's all we kind of have for news and what we've been reading or watching. So now we are going to go into our main topic, which is Star Wars, The High Republic, to get you ready for Acolyte. Be right back. What's up? Like I said, we're coming right into Star Wars, The High Republic. Now, what is the High Republic era of Star Wars? Well, the Star Wars High Republic is a multimedia project consisting of various stories from the Star Wars franchise set during the High Republic era, which spans 500 to 100 years before the Skywalker saga, meaning, episode 1 is the beginning of the Skywalker saga, and it's actually set hundreds of years after the fall of the Old Republic. Obi-Wan even refers to this time when he mentions that the Jedi were guardians of peace and justice for thousands of generations. Now, the new Disney Plus show, The Acolyte, is set during this time in the year 132 BBY. This was a time when the Jedi Order was at its highest and the Sith were in the shadows, hence the term dark side. The official description of the show is The Acolyte is a mystery thriller that will take viewers into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. A former Padawan reunites with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of crimes, but the forces they confront are more sinister than they ever anticipated.
Dun dun dun. So until the Acolyte, the High Republic was all books and comics and some video games, except for also the Disney Junior-esque show Young Jedi's is also part of that time period. So there are stories for all ages, and they can be enjoyed standalone or all together. Because in Star Wars, the more you enjoy, the better it gets. These stories also span many different genres, so you can get romance, action, horror, all that fun stuff. As far as canon versus legends, that always seems to be changing. So the novel Star Wars Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule actually launched Star Wars The High Republic. So during the High Republic time period, shit was all good for the Jedi. They were doing really well. So they wanted to bring more peace and prosperity to the worlds outside of Coruscant. This is the past, so hyperspace lanes weren't as good. Back to tanks were just starting to come about. Lots of worlds that are known now to us weren't necessarily then, and comms weren't the best then either. So
Isn't
at
that
this,
funny? Like, kind of
I
funny
know.
how they have all this technology in this universe, but there was like things that are missing from it. Like, we have the ability to still space travel. We have the ability to use these lightsabers and the force, but you know what? We can't really travel through hyperspace very much yet, and we can't heal ourselves very well yet. Like, modern medicine hasn't caught up. We're still rubbing herbs on our bodies and using weird ancient teas. Uh, but it is kind
Probably
of
works better than a
interesting.
lot of things. Well, I think also with the hyper space stuff, which makes sense, was like they had to map out lanes because you can't just jump into hyperspace. You could end up like running into somebody.
Yeah, that's how do you map, I
So,
guess, lanes? I don't know. I never really understood space travel because I'm dumb, like a
and
dummy.
because
So I never
it's
understood like
fancy.
hyperspace lanes. Like, how do you find the hyperspace? I don't know, man. I'm a dummy. Somebody explain to me, like I'm
Well,
5, how hyperspace lanes work, please.
you do see too, though, that like was it? I think console at one point's like I don't have time to map that out, or give me a second to map that out. It's like they have to like
That's my
make sure.
question. Yeah.
I wonder if it's like flight patterns. Like people don't just go up in planes. Like even if they're private planes, you're not just like, oh, I'm just going to go to Chicago. Bye. Like you have to map that out. But I don't know how they then do that to where like the bad guy's not like, oh, they just mapped out this.
Ah, they just mapped this out. Well, I
I
think that's their other problem. Well, yeah, because when they hyperspace jump to these like random ass planets where they go hide, like they go to Hoth, for example, and they can't be found, they had to have hyperspace jump there. How does the Empire of all people who controls these hyperspace lanes not know that they jump to Hoth, the Hoth system, because there's
right.
lanes, like how are they being tracked? Now, that's a very interesting discussion that I wish somebody would explain to me because now maybe I'm just looking into it too hard, but the space
Well,
cops
maybe
probably are out and about, man.
maybe you can't because it's. I feel like there's some things it's like you just have to. It's not reality. You just have to pretend like it makes sense.
Of all the things that takes place in Star Wars, your issue is hyperspace lanes. Get a grip.
Exactly. Yeah. So
Oh no.
at this time, the Jedi Order also allowed Jedi to become way seekers, which were Jedi that didn't actually follow the Jedi Council and only nomadically followed the will of the Force. I feel like that sounds like a healthy relationship with the Force. Because hyperspace lanes were just getting started, hyperspace prospecting was popular since so much of the Outer Rim was unexplored. And there were two families, the Santeca clan and the Graf family, that actually got very powerful at the time due to their successes in the quote great hyperspace rush.
So it's like the gold rush, except for space. And then they
Yeah,
found Tatooine and other really bad planets that don't offer anything.
and did
That's
not
another
offer them hope and
good
prosperity.
point, though. Like, if you get trained in the Force and you want to leave the Jedi, like, what could you not keep your lightsaber and still like do badass Force things? Like, was somebody going to show up at your doorstep and be like, "You're not a Jedi anymore. You can't do Force using and things." Like, this sounds like it's way better, like being a way seeker, because you don't have to
Mhm.
follow these dumb rules that the Jedi follow, such as no personal relationships and things of that nature.
Well, I would guess it would be like when Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, like she left the Jedi Order, like she had to go get a job, she had to go take care of herself.
A
Like I
job,
assume it's like you don't have connections and you don't have
lost my
access.
benefits.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's it. That's the thing.
jeez.
That is what it is. You lose benefits, I guess, if you're not with the Jedi Order
There goes
anymore.
my 401k, man.
Your
Gosh.
401k.
But I mean, yeah, that's another thing I'm not too knowledgeable on is because I do like the High Republic. I'm not as well versed in it as I am, obviously the current iterations of Star Wars and like the Old Republic and things like that. Because a lot of it was kind of thrown to the wayside with Disney, but these are all canon. Like Charles Soule is writing these as canon. So I would love to kind of pick his brain a bit about, hey,
All about Star Wars.
what because he's really good at Star Wars. So I'd like to pick his brain kind of about his thoughts on can you be not a Jedi, not a Sith, but still wield like Ahsoka's white lightsabers, for example. Like, are you still able to do that? You have this connection to the Force still. You're not just gonna not use it.
I feel like you kind of feel like it's all just bureaucratic bullshit.
Probably the Jedi are wrong, yeah. But the High Republic kicks off with the Jedi
And who's
attempting to
right?
bring peace to these outer rim areas when they come across an evil they thought was merely legend, much like some later think of the Jedi, one might say. This evil was the how do you pronounce this word?
I
Nihil?
assume it's
No? No?
Nihil. It's
Nihil?
Nihil, and because I think it's based on the word nihilism, which maybe I'm butchering
That
that
makes
too. But
sense. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I mean, I just, me and pronunciations, like, God, we're embarrassing ourselves in front of our 3 listeners, but they're basically a group of deadly marauders hiding out in no space. And the Drengir, plant-like hungry creatures that can control and corrupt with their collective consciousness, and the Nameless. The Nameless feed on Force sensitives. This causes a battle between them and the Jedi for the Force itself. The Nihil are led by Marchion Ro. Nihil literally means nothing, and nihilism, the belief that all values are baseless and that nothing can be known or communicated, is often associated with extreme pessimism and a radical skepticism that condemns existence. A true nihilist would believe in nothing, have no loyalties, and no purpose other than maybe an impulse to destroy. So that name has meaning. It is interesting that they don't believe in anything, but yet they believe in something enough to want to destroy the Jedi. It is kind
I
of
feel like it really just
hypocritical.
has to do with not believing in like a religion. Seems to be what it tends to be focused on, and the Force. Obviously, there are comparisons to it being a religion.
Right.
Um,
Well, what about these 3 phases of the High Republic?
So we have phase 1 is Light of the Jedi, phase 2 is Quest of the Jedi, and phase 3 is Trials of the Jedi.
Ooh.
Throughout these stories, many new characters are introduced. However, you will see some familiar faces if you dip your toes into the High Republic because not everybody ages like humans. So you have Yoda, Maz Kanata, who actually we both just recently learned she is voiced by Nakia from Black Panther. Um, Napita, I don't know how to say her last name.
Nyong'o, I think. Yeah,
That looks
so
right.
real quick, we never got that story about how she had Anakin's lightsaber, by the way. That was I'm kind of still waiting for that story. She just a good
Well,
story for
maybe
another
it's
time.
because she's a pirate. But we also see Dexter in the High Republic. So, and he's the four-armed chef with pants that are too big for him that
Yes.
helped Obi-Wan figure out about Camino and find Camino in episode 2. So, in fact, piracy was pretty big at the time because of the small reach the Republic had at the time. And one famous pirate who we were just talking about, Pirate Queen Maz Kanata, hence maybe she had to have got it through pirating. She hosted many other famous pirates and scoundrels at her castle on the planet
Takadona.
Takadona, as well as her crew. And Dexter actually often told stories about her.
Ooh, interesting. Now, at one point during the High Republic era, there was a great hyperspace disaster. A freighter legacy run came apart in hyperspace and caused large pieces of debris to be shot out of hyperspace at near light speed, and many starships across the galaxy were kicked out of hyperspace. The debris primarily threatened the Hetzel system, which is a major provider of food stuff in the Outer Rim. Billions of people who lived there, many Jedi, largely aboard the starship Atraxia, arrived to help save lives as they were beacons of light at the time. It turned out the Nihil were responsible for the disaster. Avar Kriss, a Jedi Master at the time, became known as the hero of Hetzel for her efforts in leading a group of Jedi to rescue civilians during the Great Hyperspace Disaster. This disaster is actually what created the Drengir we previously mentioned, which is an ancient species of amorphous, sentient,
Amorphous.
carnivorous plant-like. Yeah, they were accidentally awakened aboard the Maxine spaceship on the galactic frontier when travelers forced out of hyperspace were forced to stop at the station. Both the Nile and the Jedi had to fight the Drengir.
So, toward the end of the High Republic, Count Dooku was born and taken in by the Jedi. Near the end of the High Republic era, Dooku passed his initiate trials and was taken in by Yoda as his Padawan. At this time, stories were told among many of the young Jedi about Kailas Terradine, who was a Padawan who lived during the High Republic era and also discovered the archive of forbidden artifacts. These artifacts were in a hidden vault that was full of prohibited objects associated with the dark side, and they were in the archives of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Despite being accessible by only specific members of the Jedi, several Jedi, including Kailas Terradine, Lean Castana, Eula Braylon, Dooku, and Sifo Dyas, had broken into the vault. And then after the fall of the Galactic Empire, or Galactic Republic in 19 BBY, Darth Sidious inherited this collection.
Anytime we say BBY, it sounds very wrong. Like
Because
it
it's
sounds like
weird.
BBW, kind of in the year 19 BBW.
Um,
Yeah. So I like these. I like these stories. I really think Charles Soule's doing a really great job. I am glad that we're now diving into the High Republic era and Star Wars television because there's so many stories that are not just Skywalker stories. You know, the galaxy and Jedi lore goes deep, the Sith lore goes deep. I actually really hope we kind of dive into the Old Republic era at some point, because the Old Republic era really gets wild and crazy. And I don't know. I think the High Republic is Disney kind of dipping their toes in that. Of course, it's
Oh,
all
maybe.
canon with Charles Soule. However, I also wonder, like, are people how how could they not be, man? People want to go see lightsaber battles. Now the Old Republic is going to give you just that. It's Jedi versus Sith war. I want to see the Sith at the height of their power. But I always want more, and I know that I shouldn't. Now,
More. It's also fun though to see get more Andor stuff, get some more boots on the ground stories. Like what was like, okay, the Jedi were doing great in the Old Republic, but what were the lives of the people on the ground? Like was it
yeah,
still like a elitist kind of thing like we were talking with DT on our Cantina hour last week? Like how they made it like a caste system, like where just because the Jedi were doing great and there was no war, that doesn't mean people were doing well. You still have poverty and hunger and these things
I
when
mean,
there's no war.
well, this is a good point. So, in actually, Charles Soule, Shadows of Starlight, it came out this year as a 4-issue kind of run. You can get the trade now. It actually really shows Jedi as the soldiers for the first time, and Yoda's idiocy. So Yoda, they're the beacon of light, essentially, Starlight Beacon, excuse me, is destroyed by the Nile, which is kind of what we talked about. And so that killed a lot of Jedi, a lot of people. And they're looking for missing Jedi, all this kind of stuff. And the Jedi are on Coruscant, and they are all gathered inside the room that the senators and everybody let them use, because there's so many Jedi to fit there, and they're talking about their course of action. They want Jedi to now like kind of be soldiers to help fight the Nile. They're like, we're not soldiers, we're peacekeepers, we're we're this or that. And so this kind of shows them as being, for the very first time, as soldiers, kind of being that soldier. And then Yoda's in this. And so he trusts a guy who's kind of fallen to the dark side to take them to this secret place to kind of help wipe out the Nile. But Yoda may have put his trust in the wrong person. I'm not going to spoil it. That's kind of, but again, it just shows their idiocy. Like these Jedi really are high on their own supply. Like they were living too large and they got too complacent. The Sith were all but wiped out at this point. And so at this point, they don't really have any real. They're just there. They're monks. They talk about their religion, like, oh, that's sacred, and all this kind of stuff, talking about their religion, and it's blasphemy, and really kind of goes into that. But there's a couple other stories that I definitely recommend as far as the High Republic. Now, the first one is actually called The Rising Storm. So The Rising Storm is a canon novel released June 29th, 2021, written by Cavan Scott, and it is actually part of the multimedia project, The High Republic. Now, the kind of summary is that in the wake of the great disaster and the heroism of the Jedi, the Republic continues to grow, bringing more worlds together under a single united banner. Led by Chancellor Lina Sa, the spirit of unity extends throughout the galaxy, with the Jedi and newly established Starlight Beacon stationed at the vanguard. In celebration, the Chancellor plans the Republic Fair, a showcase of the possibility and peace of the expanding Republic. A precept the Jedi hope to foster. Stellan Gios, Bel Zadafar, and Elzar Mann and the others joining the event as ambassadors of harmony. But as the eyes of the galaxy turn toward the fair, so too does the fury of the Nile. Their leader, Marchion Ro, is intent on destroying the spirit of unity. His storm descends on the pageantry and celebration, sowing chaos and exacting revenge. As the Jedi struggle to curb the carnage of the rampaging Nile, they come face to face with the true fear their enemy plans to unleash across the galaxy. The kind of fear that even the Force cannot shield them from. Really good novel. The next one is The High Republic, The Fallen Star. This one was written by Claudia Gray. It came out on January 4th of 2022. Now, in this one, time and again, the vicious raiders known as the Nile have sought to bring the golden age of the High Republic to a fiery end. Time and again, the High Republic has emerged battered and weary, but victorious thanks to its Jedi protectors. And there is no monument to their cause grander than the Starlight Beacon. Hanging like a jewel in the Outer Rim, the beacon embodies the High Republic at the apex of its aspirations, a hub of culture and knowledge, a bright torch against the darkness of the unknown. And it's an extended hand of welcome to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. As survivors and refugees flee the Nile attacks, the beacon and its crew stand ready to shelter and heal The grateful knights and Padawans of the Jedi Order stationed there finally have a chance to recover from the pain of their injuries and the grief of their losses, but the storm they thought had passed still rages on. They are simply caught in its eye. Marchion Ro, the true mastermind, is preparing his most daring attack yet and designed to snuff out the light of the Jedi. And then the last, but certainly not least, because there's lots of good, it's called Into the Dark, another novel by Claudia Gray that came out in 2021. Padawan Wraith Silas is being sent from the cosmopolitan galactic capital of Coruscant to the underdeveloped frontier, and he couldn't be less happy about it. He'd rather stay at the Jedi Temple, studying the archives, but when the ship he's traveling on is knocked out of hyperspace in a galactic-wide disaster, Wraith finds himself at the center of action. The Jedi and their traveling companions find refuge on what appears to be an abandoned space station, but then strange things start to happen, leading the Jedi to investigate the truth behind the mysterious station, a truth that could end in tragedy. So these are 3 very good stories about the High Republic. I definitely recommend. And now the first 2 I mentioned kind of lead into Shadows of Starlight, which kind of wrap up that whole Starlight Beacon storyline that we were discussing. Very good stuff. Like, the Sith were gone. They're all but extinct from the Great War at this point. They were hiding. I think in Star Wars Acolyte, I would say it's pretty safe to say we're going to kind of learn what the Sith are doing. What do you think?
I do. I mean, I feel like that's what, obviously when they show up in episode 1, they're like, oh my God, the Sith are gone. But I almost feel like it's going to be like in Supernatural. And they're like, there's vampires. I thought they were extinct. No, they weren't extinct. They were here the whole time.
They're just chilling,
And
man.
Well, and they're still rebuilding, and I doubt that they were like literally that quiet doing nothing for years. I think they were just in the shadows doing
You got to
shit.
think too. They adopted the whole rule of 2 thing, which doesn't help their numbers.
Right, but it made them stronger apparently. So, yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about the Sith last week, so I think we will definitely get a little bit of that because they're hiding and waiting and growing stronger.
Of
But what else
course.
are they doing? We'll find out. So if you want more, obviously Matt just gave you some recommendations. I would definitely check your local comic book shop. However, while he was reading said recommendations, I was on Amazon. A lot of them are on there too. There's all sorts of
Barnes and
different
Noble,
stories.
yeah, they're all over the place. They're very easy to find.
Yeah. You can literally just look up High Republic books and you'll get stuff coming up. There's also, by this time, there should be an article on Nerd Initiative. Somebody is working on a recommendation of what to read as far as the High Republic era and in what order to read it. You can also head to Wikipedia or StarWars.com. They have reader's guides on there as well. The show starts June 4th in the evening, so we'll get 2 episodes that will drop that day, and then every week until July 16th for a total of 8. And I'm sure throughout June, we'll probably end up having Cantina hours for the boys,
Oh,
for
yeah,
the
we'll be
Acolyte,
doing
for
post episodes, all that kind of stuff for sure. There's no way we're not. There's so much good stuff coming out, man. We'll
right.
definitely be doing it.
Well, and I think that like you're the most excited about this show this year, and I'm the most excited about The Boys season 4. So I feel like we're both going to have a lot of
Something
energy
for
that we're
both of
going
us,
to
yeah.
need to get out on the
Oh my
Cantina.
God, did you see this?
Yeah, you'll be like, yeah, but did you see this?
Like, oh yeah, fuck Homelander. Did you see this? Oh man, I can't wait.
Justice
I'm
for
so
Soldier
excited.
Boy.
Yeah, I can't wait. So the only way to make sure that you're up to date with all of our things is subscribe to our YouTube channel first and foremost, because that is where we tend to go live the most on our Cantina hours, which we didn't do one this past week. There's a lot going on, recorded a couple episodes, and then Lauren came on out here. So social media channels, stay tuned to their Facebook page. We go live there too. It's kind of broadcast through Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, but YouTube is the best one to catch us on. Subscribe there, hopsgeeknews. And if we missed anything about the High Republic, you got some recs for us, by all means, drop them. Our email, hopsgeeknews@gmail.com, is always open. So go ahead, let us know your thoughts. And that concludes Star Wars Month this year. We will see you guys soon because, come on, there's never a bad time to talk Star Wars. We'll be talking it again. Until next time, folks, see you later.